All right, if I could please, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 2 p.m., July 22nd, Wednesday. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. If you would please rise with me. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I like that indivisible part, Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeedy. All right, so do we have any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion, please?
I move we approve the agenda as written.
Second, Chair Pash.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, we're going to move on to 3 projects. Curry Coast Highway 101 overnight camping. We have Darren Noble, District 7 Manager, ODOT, Department of Transportation, and Lieutenant Wood from the Oregon State Police. Basically, what I would like to do is kind of have a conversation about what's happening. If Mr. Noble, of course, you can start, but then anyone that has comments pertinent to what we're talking about, I don't just want to have 2 people. This is a workshop. We need to sit and talk about this, chew on it a little bit, and come up with some good ideas in that on planning on what we're gonna do. So if you wouldn't mind, sir, go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We have several, maybe a while before we get this group together again. So I just want to make a little note of, first of all, we have Sergeant McDonald is here representing the Sheriff's Department. Oregon State Police, Sergeant Speeney, Lieutenant Wood. Council Huddle is coming this way. Oregon State Parks, Larry Becker. The Harris Beach Manager, Danny Padilla. And of course, Casey Nielsen. And we have Roadmaster Christensen is here. Thank you for attending. And yes, Darren Naval, and then his famous sidekick, Mr. Michelson, is going to speak, I think. Thank you, Mr.
Did you
Chair.
say Sergeant McDonald?
Captain, I'm sorry. Oh.
I was gonna say I didn't know the
I've
word
never seen
demoted
him.
you.
I've never seen him
didn't
glare
realize it.
before. Thank you, Captain. Sorry, I just
hadn't
want to
heard
make
that
sure
word
you were
demoted you.
recognized.
Go ahead, Darren.
All right. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
And each time you come up, you probably want to adjust the microphones a little bit.
So, I guess here to talk about illegal camping on right-of-way. Most of it, I hate to admit it, where's Larry? I hate to admit it, most of it is on ODOT right-of-way. There is, as you enter into the state park areas, there's easements with state parks, and so we've tried to work around that through the last few years. We've seen, kind of as you guys have been describing, we've seen an increase over the last couple of years. We've been working with state police and state parks on trying to sign that better and get people in compliance. But we agree the issue is growing. I was down the last couple of days looking at it and just seeing more and more. And so we gotta work together trying to figure that out, I guess. And so I don't know how you want to start this conversation or what you want to do. We do got kind of that Pistol River area. We did put quite a few signs out. If I think you spoke to quite a few of them are missing, probably 2/3, half to 2/3.
Oh boy.
The wind most of them, the wind blows them off. So we're trying something different with that. But then there is some vandalism. People are removing them.
Right.
And so we're in the process of updating those. But that's probably not the solution. We're going to fight that issue.
I guess a lot of what I'd like to hear from people in the room is what do you feel are possible solutions? What road can we go down to clean this up a little bit? Because, this is the Oregon coast, and a lot of people, as is myself, I've taken a motorhome up the coast and was tired and pulled off on the coast for a few hours and just enjoyed it and had some lunch and enjoyed the beauty. Got back in my vehicle and left. But again, what we're noticing now is more and more people are in the same spot for 5-7 days. They've got their slides out, the jacks are down, they got their lawn furniture out. So, it's becoming a concern and a safety issue as much as that. So I guess I'd just like to hear some people just come up with some possible ways to deal with this in a prudent manner.
can I, just before I, maybe some others can speak, I mean, it is illegal on right-of-way. It is, we don't have to post a sign, and we don't see posting signs at every white spot's gonna be sustainable for us, long-term. And so we need to work on trying to manage that. I did see, like, around the Arizona slide, we've got them down in by our drainage wells and stuff like that. Scott's working on closing off the gate. They've ripped off the gate. I mean, it's an ongoing battle to deal with the issues we're having. And our staff, Scott stops and tries to deal with the ones he sees. But you know, we are a little gun shy of approaching folks. And then during COVID, we're kind of asked not to engage a whole lot right now. So a little hesitant around that. And there was one other thing I was going to mention, but I lost it. So I guess those are the struggles we're having. We don't disagree there's an issue there.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You mentioned about perhaps 2/3 of the signs have been eliminated, stolen, vandalized, whatever. I think we're all witnessing, and so glad to see the state police and the sheriff's department here, just a less and less respect for public property. Maybe I'm overstating that, but it is a concern that citizens have here, and the authorities that have to deal with it, of course. The budget to put up those signs, you know, my first thought was, oh boy, we're gonna have some kickback and people are gonna be opposed to that. But, you know, essentially the support was there and an agreement. But was that a Oregon Department of Transportation and Oregon Parks budget for that? And about how much was that budget? So we can look as a possible solution, additional funding to get those signs up. Dan, maybe we'll have to put an additional sign, Mr. Nival, that says, don't touch the sign.
Yeah, that one won't hold up.
Yeah, I'll just tell them to get their saw or something.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the signs are about $500 a piece. So yeah, it's not cheap. I believe most of them ODOT put up with cooperation from state parks, but we paid for them. We work with them on location and ARCI clearance and kind of all those things we got to go through.
That really helps to know.
Commissioner Gold?
Have you noticed people dumping their waste in these various areas, and how are we going to deal with that if that's the case?
Yeah. Scott, do you want to come speak to that a little bit? I'll let him do that from our perspective.
Yeah, I haven't seen any waste or garbage. Of course, I don't necessarily stop by the edge of the road and look for stuff like that. You know, that's not really my duties. But you know, just in passing, not. I mean, we have our litter crew in the summers. They pick up garbage, but we don't really monitor how much is picked up from certain locations.
Not a whole lot more, in other words. Okay.
Well, Mr. Michelson, could be the Pistol residents. Johnny on the spot, clean it up before. We're going to really hold that against you, by the way.
I'm sorry.
That
We
red
go back a
face is
few
enough.
years, don't we, huh?
The red face is enough.
Yeah. So, didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I know the Pistol River residents, Mr. Euler's here, and I know, without question, he has made that a personal task, and there's some other people that shake their head, look at it first, go back a second time and pick it up and haul it off, and not just Pistol River residents. I'm glad to hear you say that it may not be as big an issue as we originally thought, but I think we need to be on guard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, matter of fact, we just recently ran our grass mower through there, and I was asking the operator a couple days ago if he was noticing, you know, the mower would turn up garbage and whatnot, and there wasn't any more than usual, which there probably shouldn't be any, but.
I know our code enforcement's been inundated with a lot of calls on this as well, because they're getting off on some of the side roads now. North Bank, I know, has a couple that come in there every now and then and get into some of those turnouts in the park, because they don't figure any law enforcement or code enforcement will find them down there. They're off the beaten path. So, ignorance, as I was once told, is not an excuse to break the law, though. But all we can do, I think, to help educate people that you can't stay here for 3 days. I mean, I can imagine there's a certain percentage of people that just don't know that you can't do that, but there's a large percentage of those people that absolutely know they can. So,
we might call you back.
Okay.
Hey, who called, by the way, Scott? No, I'm kidding. So maybe the state police?
Yeah,
Mr.
can we get
Carey?
state to come up, please? Morning, or afternoon now.
Good afternoon. Camping up along the coast, up and down, it's a mixture of folks. You know, I think with the recent state park closure, we were talking about this at or before the meeting. I think we have people who are just coming to show up to find a spot and not knowing what they're going to find when they get there. So when they can't find a legitimate camping spot to camp in right now, they're just going to the waysides and the pullouts. And I think there's always a certain number of people who are transient and they're finding a spot to camp wherever they can. I think there's a mixture of all those things right now.
Okay. Any ideas on how we can help with that, thwart it?
Pretty complex problem at the moment, or complex issue. I mean, the legal status around camping and people's ability to camp and sleep is always changing. You know, the Ninth Circuit recently ruled, about a year and a half ago, in the Boise case, which complicates the enforcement, and the current state with COVID also complicates the enforcement.
Right.
It doesn't complicate the enforcement of other issues surrounding littering or things like that. So the people who are pulling off into these waysides and they're dumping their trash and stuff like that, those are issues that can be addressed. We just have to know that it's happening and where it's happening.
But what I see is when people are at a campground and they're driving down the road and they see five trailers on the side of the road between here and Brookings, they say, why am I paying $39, $49 a night to stay here? I can just go pull my trailer out and live on the side of the road for a few days rather than give Lexus Landing $50 a night. You know what I mean? So it's,
You know, I absolutely see that perspective.
yeah. Commissioner?
At your time, Lieutenant, on the force, being around Oregon, I'm sure this isn't just a problem isolated to Curry County. What can you tell us that you're recognized around the state? And the reason I'm asking that, and I want to ask Captain McDonald this too, hopefully, you know, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I believe it's going to take a legislative decision of some sort here to get better funding, additional funding. But just what do you recognize around the state? And I mean, this is one of the best parts of the Oregon coast, certainly for viewpoints. Your thoughts on that?
I've only been with state police a little over a year. I started with state police April of 2019. Prior to that, I was with the Corvallis Police Department for just short of 21 years. But some of the behaviors and issues are the same. When I was with the city, we saw a marked uptick in the number of people who are camping in RVs, which is, it's problematic because RVs in and of themselves are difficult to deal with. If you have an RV that's abandoned or winds up needing to be towed, tow companies are very reluctant to do that because they eat a tremendous loss on the tow. It takes a lot of capital for them to dispose of them because they're a hazmat. You know, they have to deal with the tanks and they have to deal with the contents, and some of those are legitimate hazmats, and so it costs them thousands and thousands of dollars. So getting tow companies to work with us in those kind of things are difficult, and I think there are some potential legislative remedies to help fund disposal of those hazmat RVs.
I think
Just to create a pool of funding to be able to do that.
Commissioner Gold might have a comment on that.
I was just going to say our county has had to spend quite a bit of money to have these old RVs removed. Thankfully, we had CTR that's worked with us and given us a nice discount as far as disposing of them, but it's a problem. It really is.
Right, and I think it's a problem all over the state. You know, my experience has only been with Corvallis and then my year down here on the South Coast, but I see a lot of similar behaviors. And I think whether you're in the city or in the county or somewhere along a state highway, you're going to have the same issue of disposal and dealing with these things when we encounter them.
And it's not only a matter of them just getting rid of the camper or RV, then it's filled with garbage, literally.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yes, Commissioner.
Could you remind the public what our force is now in Curry County at the Gold Beach?
At the state police office?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a sergeant and 6 troopers for Gold Beach.
That's good news. We had, was it 4 just a year and a half ago? 4 or 5?
I think that's correct, yeah.
Good news, though. Yeah.
All right.
We
thank
might call you back.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Gab, did you want to come up and make some comments?
All I'm going to say is from the sheriff's office perspective, it's a continual, I'm going to take this off, I can talk
It's
about it.
okay.
It's a continual evolving issue. And like the lieutenant said, with everything that's going on in the world, with the Supreme Court's ruling on camping on, not camping, but sleeping on public right-of-ways and on public property, unless we have a shelter and all the shelter beds, if there's an empty shelter bed, you can require people to move on. Well, Curry County has no shelters whatsoever, so we can't require people that are sleeping in a public place or on public property. We cannot require them to vacate that while they're sleeping.
Counsel?
Yes.
Well, the case from Boise and the rulings from the courts are a little more narrow than that. The people first have to show that they are homeless and that
Right.
they are involuntarily homeless. So
Right.
I think some of these $50,000 trailers are going to have a hard
Okay,
time.
all right, I get that.
Okay.
That might be the well, I'm not
I
talking
know.
I'm not talking
well,
$50,000 trailers.
thank you. I agree. There's a mix.
I'm talking the people that are living in the RV, that it's the ones that we talk about that are the nuisance RVs that barely run from
Right.
place to
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
That the sheriff's office deal with, the state police deal with, our code enforcement deal with, and eventually when they quit running and they can't move from place to place, and they don't have $50 to get a tow company to come just move them from one pole out to another, and then we finally get them hauled off and they're full of, for whatever reason, with some homeless and some people in that also comes what I'll call hoarding mentality. When you go into these places, it's literally like watching the hoarders show on television. Their motorhomes are full from top to bottom of stuff, and how people sleep in them, I don't know. But those are the problem ones. Those are the ones that we deal with the most. I mean, right now with COVID and people traveling along the coast and parking, yes, and camping, with all the campgrounds closed, it's hard to say go to a campground. The campgrounds are closed. You know, you should have planned your trip better. If they're there overnight, are they breaking a rule? Are they not breaking a rule? You know, if they're there for 3 days, obviously it's not camping. But with COVID and everything else that's going on, that's really not one of the huge things. Now, like the lieutenant said, we still, if they're throwing trash, if they're littering, if they're doing resource damage, you know, if we can catch the guy that's cutting brodies, not in the sand, because, you know, Oregon Beach, unfortunately, I was looking at the photos that I think you put together, unless it's specifically posted, you can take your pickup and your car out on the beach. You can't take your ATV that's designed to go in the sand out there. So, you know, but so it oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure where it was, but I mean, I'm looking at the sand and like, well, okay, you can take your car out there, you can take your pickup, you just can't take your ATV. But, you know, but if they're like out in a meadow tearing up on the forest and doing resource damage, if we can catch them at it, we're going to give them a citation for criminal mischief. We're going to address the criminal acts. We may not address the fact that, you know what, you're camped here illegally. We may tell you, you know, look, you've been here like on the forest, you've been here more than 14 days in a row, you got to move it on. And then whatever the other rules are, but we don't generally, honestly, we don't generally mess with the people that are just pulled off not causing a problem.
Right.
And then you get the whole other part where Pistol River is, I mean, that's like one of the premier wakeboard and, you know, windsurfing areas on the Oregon coast, that those guys are there camped, and I don't get complaints about that. And a lot of, and seeing that's the other problem. You get just like every other group in the world, you've got a group of people, you have a whole bunch of people that are traveling in RVs all over the United States. 98% of them are people that wouldn't leave a piece of Kleenex on the ground. I mean, they take everything with them, they keep it cleaned up. Just like, you know, you have thousands of people that love to ride ATVs and motorcycles and recreate in the forest that would never consider tearing something up. But then you got that 2% that give everybody a bad name, that leave the 3 bags of trash. And if you took those photos, and if you picked that up, you need to call us before you pick it up, because we will go dig through it and look for a name. Okay, but yeah. You know, we'll look through that stuff. I don't know if the state police does, but you know, that's what we send our deputies out there. If they're gonna find a name, they're gonna go cite somebody for illegal deputy or for illegal dumping. So, anyways,
Commissioner?
but so we'll address the criminal stuff that's occurring. But honestly, like I said, with everything that's going on in the world today, if somebody's camped and not causing an issue and not doing anything, honestly, we're not going to mess with them.
And I agree, that's part of the Oregon experience. I mean, that's the beauty of this place. And people, that's what we ask people to do, is come up here and visit and recreate here, so.
But if we have a complaint that they're littering or they're dumping their sewage or something, we're gonna go, you know, area of responsibility specific, you know, but we work with our partners every day. If the state doesn't have anybody on, and there's something going on at the Pistol River in one of the pullouts, well, our guys are going to run down there and check it out. The same if somebody's right up the north bank or the south bank of the Chetco, their guys help us out all the time. That's the beauty of working in a rural community where we all work well together. So,
good.
But like I said, we'll address any of the criminal stuff, or if there's problem behavior, we'll address that. But if people are just, and especially like I said, with everything going on in the world today, if people are just, I'm sorry, camped there and not causing a problem, unless ODOT or somebody came and said, hey, we know they've been here for this long and we would like someone to go tell them they have to move on, we're more than happy to do that and help out any way we can. But as far as the guys just saying, yeah, I think I'm gonna go tell those people they gotta move out because, yeah, they're probably not supposed to camp, unless we get asked to move somebody off along a state highway, we're not going to. We already take care of everywhere on the pullouts, either we do it or code enforcement, and we work back and forth with the county code enforcement on, hey, if you've handled that one, we won't, or we'll tell them to move on. I mean, we already take care of those, so. But for us, the most of those are truly homeless that are trying to live without any resources, that are on the verge of being an abandoned motorhome anyways, so.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
Anyone else like to come up and make any comments? Mr. Barnes, I know you have a public comment card in.
Thanks. I'm David Barnes. I guess I'm here speaking on behalf of the public, and while I understand this is a problem, I just want to make sure that, you know, whatever happens in this room or whatever you all decide to request, that it doesn't impact and impede the public's ability to use the rest stops ourselves to access the beach and other things. I listened to the talk about the signs. To be honest and to be frank, those signs are damn ugly, and they really destroy the view shed. You'd practice with big ones up in the air. Little narrow ones that were down where you would see them when you pull in wouldn't stand out in the view shed. You know, maybe try those as a replacement if you think you have to put them up. You know, I agree that there's an issue with some people, and I'm not opposed to something being done about it. I just really hope that it doesn't impact us, the citizens of Curry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Larry.
Larry Becker, State Park District Manager. Danny Padilla and Casey Nielsen are the two park unit managers on the South Coast. Danny works out of the Harris Beach unit, which oversees the Pistol River area. Casey works out of the Cape Blanca unit, which sees issues, especially around Humbug Mountain through up to Port Orford, I will tell you, I worked at Humbug Mountain from 1984 to 87, and every night in the summer, there was motorhomes parked along the highway from Humbug Mountain to Port Orford. Okay, so it's not a new issue, but it has been an increasing issue. One of the challenges we have as a state park agency is we have the Ocean Shore Recreation Area overlay, which is on the beach up to the 16-foot line or the vegetation line, whichever's furthest east. And that affects the landowners like Mr. Hewlin. It also affects how we can enforce rules. We have administrative rule enforcement only in state parks. That means we are not law enforcement. And for us, anytime it moves to a law enforcement action, our sole law enforcement resources are the state police or the county sheriff's office. So when we make contacts with folks, if we can't get them to comply under an administrative rule, then the second step we have to take is to move to a law enforcement rule or a law. And Danny will make contacts numerous times, not only with the nomadic or the home, the RV campers, but also with those in tents and stuff along the beaches. Those are the ones that we have the most problems with because they don't have a waste management system. And what we will do then is our contacts usually addresses the fact that they have no waste management system. And then we have the authority to give them an order to leave the area for so many hours at a time. And without cooperation, we have authority to exclude them from the state park property. And we can do that up to a certain length of time. Okay. Once we give them an exclusion order, if they violate that, then it moves to a trespass. And we ask the OSP or the state police folks to help us on that. When you start talking about the highway pullouts and the right-of-ways, as Darren talks about, there's this fuzzy line where the ocean shore or the state park jurisdiction comes in so far, but then the right-of-way might stick out over into that based on where 101 runs. And the other side of it is along like Pistol Rivers and Myers Creek, there's some boundaries in there where there's state park properties, and then there's private land, and then there's state park properties. So there's an intermix, and our authority changes whether it's in a state park land or it's on a private property, even on the ocean shore. Within the ocean shore in a state park, we have different sets of rules and authority than we do on the ocean shore on private land. So in the example of 3 pieces of property north of the Pistol River Bridge in the Sylvan Estates area, they have underlying property land ownership out across the beach, the private landowners. Mr. Hewlin's one of those. Our authority over that land is strictly Ocean Shore Recreation Area authority and the easement of that recreation area. So what we can and can enforce there is limited to that as far as state parks is concerned. We believe we can continue to work with OSP, with the county and others to educate, and we can try to do some better signing. I think we worked on and we're working on in our area, Sam Boardman, we're going to be working on doing some hard blockage. We're going to be putting some large boulders to block areas where we've had problems with illegal camping, just south of Huskanayden. In fact, we've had OSP go in there and help us deal with some criminal trespass issues and some long-term illegal camping down in below that, and we're going to hard block that with large rocks, and ODOT will quit mowing some of that area so that we can keep people out of there. There's some places along 101 where that can maybe be done even on some of the pullouts to limit how far people can get off the road, how easy they can hide. We've tried to do that up north. Casey's worked with OSP up around Rocky Point because we have a pullout there on the east side of the road where people like to pull up and hide, and we've actually done a block there to try to stop folks from hiding off of the road for their camping experience. So we're going to continue to do that. That's one way we can approach it. Education is the other way. The challenges from my perspective and my experiences in state parks has been with the citation and the enforcement side of it is the challenges for both the law enforcement officers and for the judge and the court system to deal with it. You know, we can move to citations and we can move to that, but we have to make sure that as we're doing that, we have a good cooperative relationship with the court system, that they understand the issue and they understand why we're approaching it the way we are. Because once we go to punitive action and we're asking the court to make a decision on that, we want to make sure they have a full understanding of why we had to take it to a punitive position as opposed to just an education position. Beyond that, if Casey or Danny want to share any of their experiences, I'd ask them to step up.
I just have one question. I know we have all these RVs here. Is there a place that they can dump their sewage?
Yes, a number of our parks have dump stations at them.
Okay.
Currently, the one that we have closed out down at Harris Beach area is the rest area, which we have closed. The rest area is unique for us in that it's a state park property that's also an ODOT rest area. It is one of those areas where we've had the largest challenge with I call them nomadic campers or the transient campers. Large RVs, oftentimes not in very good shape or not running well, and will break down there, and then we end up having to work to get them towed out of there. They'll stay overnight in the rest area, they'll pull over to our day use area during the day, and then they'll pull back to the rest area at night. When we closed that rest area due to the closure of the parks, and we made a decision to leave it closed, it put the city of Brookings in a little bit of a bind because they were utilizing that rest area as a place to send the RVers who were staying on city streets in Brookings. So then we worked with Tony and Janelle down there and made an agreement, and Danny worked with the city of Brookings to make plans. People could call Danny, scheduled to come out and dump their RVs at a dump station that's inside Harris Beach State Park, even though we had the park closed. Casey has a dump station at Humbug Mountain that works.
Yeah, the only reason I asked that question is because I've received quite a few calls from citizens concerned about this issue. So I just wanted to make sure there were places. Are they well advertised so they know where these dump stations are?
Yeah, they are actually advertised in both state parks documents and ODOT documents.
Okay, that's good.
I will share with you, some of the challenges we have, like Casey has at his dump station at Humbug Mountain, it's on a septic sewer system, drain field system. And so the capacity for that field and that, it gets taxed. And we have that same problem at a couple other parks to where we at times almost have to shut our dump stations down because we have more people using our dump stations than we do having using parks.
So is there a charge for these folks
No, there's not.
Maybe that.
We have a lot of folks who give us a courtesy donation, believe it or not, but the system does not allow us to charge for it at this time.
I believe the cities have dump stations in them too. I know Gold Beach had one, or they used to have one. I don't know if it's still up and active, but I know.
Yeah, I know Brookings doesn't because we were theirs, but yeah, some of them do. And so what we try to do is know where those dump stations are. They're challenging. The dump stations are challenging in themselves because of the chemicals they use in their RV tanks to cut wood down. They create problems for the treatment plants, and so you run into the.
It kills the natural bacteria.
Like to see that stuff either.
It kills the natural bacteria.
It does, and it impacts the way the treatment plants have to work as they're trying to digest and work through the waste management. So they're a great RVs, are a great way to camp and have fun, but there's a lot of collateral issues that come with them that we end up dealing with.
Thank you. I would invite. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I would invite anyone else that would like to, please, with any comments, come up and speak.
Well,
just identify yourself, please.
Danny Padilla, Park Manager for the Harris Beach Management Unit. I just want to give a little bit of context. So back in October 2019, I had actually submitted a project proposal to put up 14 different signs along our pullouts, the ones that we do own. Because when I came down to Harris Beach, quite honestly, it's the same system, like we said before, all over the state is dealing with it. My 6 years in the Central Coast, they're definitely dealing with it. In fact, they got a lot more of RVs that were abandoned, and having to deal with the cleanup of that was pretty cumbersome. So I decided to put out a project proposal for 14 different places. And because I realized that in order to enforce where we can enforce, a lot of the times we have to cooperate with Oregon State Police because we don't operate at nighttime. And so we don't have, and that's not only for administratively, but it's for safety as well. And so I had conversations with Oregon State Police, and it came to the fact that if those pullouts do have a day use only with hour signs, it's much easier for them to go and enforce and help us. And so I put out that project proposal, and it was estimated to be around $2,700. And then the COVID thing happened. And so our budget got taken away. But I still have all of those project plans. So my hope is that when we can get funding available, and if we certainly have support, I can continue with that project so that those places that we can enforce, we can at least have that signage up so it's, the knowledge is more out there that people know that they can't be there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Padilla? Ms. Padilla?
Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
Hey, Captain McDonald, may I, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Captain McDonald was distinguishing between the windsurfers there and just the growth. As Mr. Becker said, there is an increase. I think you go back a few years, you wouldn't have seen an SUV under the Pistol River Bridge. That would have been a very uncommon sight. Now it seems to be becoming more common. But in distinguishing between the windsurfers and just the overnight people that pull over for whatever extended or not period of time, are we losing some of our windsurfers in that activity and room? Are they fairly healthy right now and consistent in their visiting? Because tourism, you know, more and more every year we are relying on increased tourism as part of our whole economic base as our natural resources are, as you know, dwindling. So just wonder what your thoughts were on that. First question.
So the question was, how are the windsurfers, are they continuing to come out to the park?
Yeah, on a consistent number. I didn't ask that very well. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's hard for me to tell, quite honestly, especially this season, because, you know, 16 people aren't working right now, and so we don't have a lot of eyes and ears out there in that particular area.
Okay.
They didn't, you know, obviously we don't have a special use permit process right now to let them go out there because of the governor's orders. But I have seen people out there windsurfing. I will say it's not like it was last year, but I see them out there recreating. They're out kind of in the Hunter Cove area and then down south towards Pistol River. So I think they're still going out there. And like Larry mentioned, most of our issues happen with people that are illegal tent camping. I see far more garbage, and we have to deal with a lot more of hazmat and dumping issues with the people that are tent camping than the people with the RVs. There are a small number percentage of people who are living in RVs or vans or trailers, and we will have a lot of garbage pickup after that. But primarily, the most dangerous situations we have and the most cleanup that we have come from tent camping.
I'll be darned.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen.
State Parks. A couple successes that I thought I might share with your group.
Good.
One of the areas that we saw a real problem was Sisters Rock. And Sisters Rock has that parking area that's kind of tucked behind. And I will share with you, we found raw sewage, buckets of sewage. We cleaned up all kinds of debris that we don't even want to talk about. I got pictures on my phone if anybody wants to see.
Oh.
That's okay, as long as they don't smell. too.
But as we went through that, we kind of developed a plan where we went and blocked out that parking area that didn't allow folks to go back into the hidden area, but still allowed people to park. And then we worked with ODOT to open up another turnout area that was much safer to access. And we've been working on that, and the Coast Trail goes to there now. And so I think that's where you're really gonna have the most success is if you can keep them out where everybody can see them, we see like we have less problems. I worked for a crusty old police sergeant that taught me it's engineering, education, and enforcement. If you don't have the stop sign, nobody stops. If you don't know what the stop sign means, nobody stops. And if there's not somebody there who can make it a physical impression, people might not stop. Not everybody stops. And so I think, unfortunately, this is going to be one of those problems where we're going to have to all work together, come up with a multifaceted solution, and apply that. Thank you very much for bringing this up.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen, hey. You didn't hear me.
Hi, I'm Don Euler. I'm the one that did the presentation. Probably the only thing I want to add is, one, there is a lot of human waste. I can show you what I got picked up just from the last 2 days at one place. I don't know if it's the RVs. I actually think it's more of the van RV conversions that they only have gray water, no black water type systems. And I couldn't believe how much that cost that you're charging these people. They're also a lot easier to hide in some of the areas. The information you provided about education and being able to have a little bit of stuff put out there of it's not allowed. We're getting hammered because of the internet. If you just Google free camping Gold Beach, you get all of these sites that say, here's the place to park, here's what you do, here's how you hide, and stuff like that. Unless we can educate somehow, whether it's the state parks website or something like that, these are the things we expect expect you to do if you're going to be coming here to visit. We're not going to be able to do anything for the problem. As soon as one car pulls over, all of them, then, oh, this must be a place to park and see. I said, on the internet it says camp here for the night or whatever, and 8 hours later they have to go to the bathroom. Right now there is no place for them to go.
Thank you.
like
And I'm
that.
sure Darren by tonight will be on that site, marking all the spots where they say, here's the place to hide, and putting a big rock there in the next week or two. Go ahead, sorry.
Roadmaster Christians, can I ask you a question about signs? You heard the budget, $500. Pull us back to possible potential solutions, Mr. Chair. The $500, if we went to a steel pipe, this may not be feasible. You could answer that better than I could. If we went to a steel pipe, had basically the same signs, with the addition of a little more emphasis on the potential penalties for leaving trash, could you give me a rough idea what that budget might be if the county was contracted to do that, if you're even available?
I wouldn't have a number for that. I'd have to see the
Research.
a drawing or whatever, what the size of the sign and the posts. And
So-
it sounds like part of the problem is wind loading, Pistol River, huge wind. You just can't put a big, huge 4x8 sign out there.
But if we had a 4-inch steel pipe, that's probably gonna be $50 right there. 10 foot, 3 foot in the ground or a third. And that might, I'm looking for solutions. That, just to let the public know. I resent, even if I disagree with the signs, I resent people tearing them down. And especially learning and just being reminded what they cost. This notion that we're blocking the public or the local citizens. Thank goodness we have open beach access here. But I just wondered if you had some idea. Maybe we'll put a project on your desk just to estimate that.
Okay, I can do that. I think we missed one other thing in this discussion is, earlier when we were having all these problems before we had code enforcement, we had the working poor or the working that couldn't find a home because of lack of housing, and we have those folks as well. So it's not just all the RVers. We have local people here that can't find a home or afford a home, and they're working in our businesses, so we have that aspect as well.
Okay. Thanks, Richard.
State Parks again. One of the things that came up earlier was about the sign, and I agree with you with sort of sign pollution. It's a real concern of ours in state parks. And I had a boss I worked under for years, Mr. Latome, who he just absolutely, once you put up more than 1 or 2 signs in an area, nobody reads any of them. And if you have too many words on them, they won't read them, right? So, signs are not always the answer. The challenge we have is where do you put the sign, and how does the sign have to be set, and what standards it has to be set for the rule to be enforceable. And the state police may be able to answer, or the county sheriff's office may be able to answer that. At one time, in my park experience, we were told that our signs had to be at a certain height, they had to be certain colors, they had to be certain sizes, and they had to have either the OAR or the ORS on them in order for them to be enforceable. I don't know if that's still the case or not. But that's one of the reasons why these signs sometimes end up in the wrong, or invading a view shed, is because they have to be at a place where nobody, ADF, any fool could see them. Okay, so when you put them down low and somebody parks their car in front of them, the next guy doesn't see them, you can't enforce that type of thing. So it's a real challenge trying to both hit those markers and also still respect the whole aesthetic view of the coast and the people who come here to see that view shed. We don't disagree with it at all. It's a real struggle for us in state parks. We went on to cream on brown, for one thing, is to try to make the signs less visible. Then we found out they weren't enforceable. So it's one of those things that we've run into in the past.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, legally, if we don't warn the public, whether they read the sign or not, I think is a legitimate concern. But if we don't warn the public, and then when the sheriff and his staff are willing to go through the trash and say, we're going to find out who did this if we can, and we're going to say, don't do it anymore, and here's the consequences if we don't have those signs. And what's the old song when we're kids growing up, tuck my hair up under my hat, went in to apply, signs everywhere. I understand that, I do. People generally are resistant, but if we're gonna find a solution, where do we start? That's,
I'm gonna tell you, it's not with signs.
Okay.
Signs are just like the lock on your door, on your house, and on your car. The only thing a sign does is keep an honest person honest. Just like the lock on your door at your home keeps an honest person honest. If somebody wants to camp there, they're going to, and if they want to come up with an excuse, they're going to cut the sign down, and then they can say, well, there wasn't a sign here when I got here, so I thought it was legal. They're going to say that, and if we're there for enforcement, we're going to explain to them, look, I'm sorry, there used to be a sign here, but the rule is you can't camp here, so you need to pack up and move on. We can do that education when the time is appropriate. I think you come up with some kind of a solution, with some advertisement, with something. I'm going to say that this is a horrible time to try and find a solution to this problem, because I know with some of the governor's mandates on some of the stuff that the state employees can and can't do, whether it's in writing, whether it's not in writing, what we're trying to find a solution to today, we're not going to find a solution to today. I think today's a great day to plan and say, when things go back to whatever the new normal is going to be, and I hate that phrase, by the way, when things go back to business as it should be, then we can address this issue again. It's a multifunctional issue. It's not just homeless. It's not just the nomad lifestyle. Some of it is just legitimate people. I came to the coast to go camping. I didn't think I needed a reservation to get into a campground, and there's no place. And I got the kids, you know what, it's a great view. We pulled over, we're here for 2 days. We're going back to Portland, Salem, Eugene, wherever we came here from. We came for the weekend, we're self-contained, and those are the people you never have problems with. Like I said, the signage, okay, signs are signs, but signs keep honest people honest. That's all they do. Just like the lock on your, when you lock your car with your stuff in it, all that does is keep the honest people from stealing. The people that really didn't want to steal your stuff, when you're parked at the trailhead, when your car's locked, they don't steal it. The ones that want to steal it, they're going to bust your window out and take your stuff anyway. So, yeah. So
I think we all agree that it's, I don't think anyone on this board, I don't think anyone in this room wants to impede the 98% of people that want to come up here and recreate and enjoy this, with as little signs as possible. I think we all agree with that. What I want everyone in this room to know, I think this board is united in, if you need our help to do something, to move something forward, that we can work together with you on to fix a problem. For that 2%, I believe this board would be united to do that. I speak for only one member right now, but I believe that you would have our support, and let's all work together and keep this area just what it is, beautiful.
Right, and I'm not, by any means, I'm not saying that the sheriff's office is saying, you know what, go out and camp wherever you want and do whatever you want. That's not what I'm saying by any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is, you need to follow the rules, but we do have some enforcement obstacles going on right now.
Commissioner Melzer?
Captain, I have a question for you. So,
Yes.
in my mind, this problem isn't restricted to the agencies in this room. We also have it with the Forest Service, BLM, and the ports. I know.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, we get complaints about campers being abandoned or pollution and things of that nature. Do you know if they're doing anything different than what this group is doing? Anything we can learn from, or is it still the same, where you just have to rely on code enforcement or law enforcement?
It's the same. I mean, you deal as the complaint pops up. You go deal. I mean, unfortunately, it's a reactionary. There is some proactive, and what we're talking about here is doing some proactive stuff, which is great. And I think some public messaging, education messaging, I think it's more than just a sign. So some proactive issues, stuff on the county webpage. These are the rules for pullouts. I mean, welcome to Curry County. I mean, a link on the county webpage. Post this stuff wherever we can get it posted. But unfortunately, when it becomes an issue, then it becomes a reactionary issue where we get a call that says, hey, these people are here causing this problem, and we go deal with it, whether it's the sheriff's office, whether it's the state police, whether it's the Forest Service law enforcement officer, or our forest patrol deputy, whether it's on, we deal with illegal dumping on private timber grounds all the time, on Forest Service, everywhere. It's not just on the 101 corridor, it's in the forest, it's all over. And it's not just, unfortunately, it's not just Curry County, it's all over the state. When I talk to my counterparts in other parts of the state, everyone's dealing with a lot of the same issues. And so that's why, you know, when I say that, you know, we'll dig through the garbage. If we find an illegal dump, we want to put it into it. We don't want to just, you know, call. Thankfully, we have a couple of organizations that'll come help that we can call on to, you know, if we find a dump that a lot of times we can get it cleaned up. But if we can find a way to trace that back to somebody, you bet we're going to get them prosecuted to the best of our ability and what the DA will do. So that's, you know, we want to find a solution, and sometimes a hammer to the appropriate person is part of the solution. Not always, but sometimes. So.
Okay. Thanks, Cap.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, back to solutions. I mentioned earlier legislative approaches to this. You know, I think if we had a chance again, let's just say a steel post, a 4-inch, and a 4x4 pressure treated post cost the same in the overall budget. I bet we would be considering doing steel posts now, and those would be much harder to move. Ms. Padilla mentioned 14 signs on her plan. I want to hang on to that figure and see how that might change over time and how we can adjust that. I don't want our board just to say we'll help if we're called. I'd like to be part of the solution. I think a couple, you know, it sounds like we need additional septic capacity. I don't know if we can continue to do it free. That would have to be a legislative fix if we want to fiercely protect the Oregon Coast Highway. The other one, Captain McDonald just mentioned public messaging. Maybe we need to get something on our website. That is something we can do. I just want to be a little proactive, yeah, not reactive. And of course, we need more RV parks too. That might be a possible solution. I don't think we're talking about homeless folks here. We could be, partially, and I think we are talking nowadays about more than 2%. It may be still a very small number, but it is growing, and we wouldn't have seen 3 bags on the southwest corner of 3 bags of big white trash, the Pistol River Bridge, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I'll conclude with this, Mr. Chair. I wonder where we'll be a year from now, or even 5 years from now. It is a good reminder what Mr. McDonald just said. It's all over the backcountry, people just dumping, and boy, it's not a good sign. And so anything we can do to push back on that, I think we're responsible to do. And again, our tourism is so important now. We've got to fiercely protect that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further comments, Mr. Barnes?
Yeah, I'm listening to talk about signs. I listen to Mr. Becker, and I'm wondering, rather than putting, if you have 2 lanes of road, you have a pull out here. How about if you put a sign here and a sign up here instead of all the way across? The sign says no overnight camping, pull out ahead. You know, they're not on the road. You know, they're not blocking the view shed when you get there. You're asking for solutions. I don't know what the rules and requirements are on what your signage has to be for you to enforce it or for it to be valid, but instead of going across, you know, 1 here, 1 there on each of your spots.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Padilla, one more thing, if I may, please.
I thought you said that was all.
I'm going to ask her a question. I'm really impressed that you had that plan. It sounded like a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, and you had 14 signs. We saw those go up. We understood the controversy a little bit, real or perceived. And you're going to amend that plan and present that too?
Yeah, so those 14 signs are actually within our entire management unit. So not just in the Pistol River area,
Sure.
but all the way down the Samuel Boardman corridor. And so I had requested considerations for that project because we do have to go through archaeological concerns, right-of-way concerns, those kind of things. And so I put that out to our agency's budget. I got approval to spend on it, and then this whole thing happened. So that approval, that project money got taken away from us. I wasn't able to order anything as of yet. I did get some archaeological guidance and some further recommendations on some places that are sensitive. So what we actually started doing last summer is we put up some day use only signs, and we affixed it to the back of the guardrails so they weren't impeding in the ground. And then, as the sheriff and others had mentioned, people have been tearing them down. So, you know, they're not as permanent as what we would like them to be. And so to go forth through that, I'd have to make sure that we have the budget again for it. We have the manpower too, because that's the other thing. We really don't have a lot of people that can go out there and install those right now.
So you think 14 would remain adequate? Is that a good number in your opinion, based on your experience?
I identified 14 of the major pullouts that are not identified as no camping. I agree that we do not need to sign all of the corridor,
Sure.
and I definitely want to preserve the view shed. But our challenge is, our day use hours are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We don't have anyone that works past 10 p.m. up to 6 a.m. that can go and actually check to make sure people are out of the parks. So by the time we go down and make our maintenance run, you know, it's in the daytime, and people are certainly allowed to be there in the daytime. They're certainly allowed to have lawn chairs out and, you know, enjoy it for the day. We can't prove, for the most part, that they're there at night. Even if it's a third-party photograph, or, you know, that can be said as hearsay. So what I was trying to do was put up some educational signs, so that way state police and others that are out there at night can at least use that as an educational tool, and then if people choose not to, then we can go that route.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Code enforcement, Portman? No?
Yes, sir.
Let me clarify for the commissioners. In 2016-17, Mr. Neville worked with then manager Anna Krug and I to determine a placement of those current red on white no parking signs, the 17 signs that went up, and we hadn't had conversations with the commission board about it before we put them up. Sergeant Adelette was here at that time. And we talked about, we put up a whole bunch of these signs because we were trying to start to address this issue. Those signs are the ones that are currently missing or being bent by the wind or vandalized. These 14 signs that Manager Padilla is talking about will be primarily within state park boundaries, okay, because they're state park related signs. So Samuel Boardman Corridor, which starts just north of the Huskanade Slide against the Crook property and goes almost to Brookings, you know, just before the college property now. That area in there is where most of those signs will go, where we have people pulling out in those pull-outs along there by Natural Bridges and a couple of the other spots. And so we want to sign and inform folks that they can't stay overnight there. The other signs, the original signs, the ones that Mr. Barnes was talking about too, those are the ones we need to have a bigger conversation about. How can we put them? Where can we put them? How can we make them more educational and more enforceable and more permanent in terms of sustainable, I should say, not permanent, but sustainable in terms of the environment. So there's two different sets of signs that are going on. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right. With nothing further, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for coming, everyone.